and welcome to Bandwidth Conversations. At the time of this recording, Bandwidth Conversations will have been releasing podcasts for 18 months. In that time, I've interviewed musicians, actors, authors, directors, producers, screenwriters, playwrights, adventurers, and a mix of other rock stars of life. And we have reached over 250,000 people through audio and video. It all started thanks to the people in front of me today. Two legends in the world of music and great friends of mine with whom I sing in a band called The Stax. During the first lockdown, while the rest of us were making our way through Netflix, they were making music. They worked so well together, and the music they created was so good, they formed the band Bagawire. This podcast will be broadcast to coincide with the release of their debut album. And 2 years ago, they decided they'd like to do a podcast to add colour to the album, talking about their rich and varied music careers. I asked them if they'd let me be the interviewer, and they kindly agreed. Very kindly, given I had no experience whatsoever. The conversation you're hearing today is a fusion of our original chat and an update. The intro to their song, What You Give Is What You Get, is the regular Bandwidth Conversations theme tune, which they have generously let me use. I sometimes describe my conversations as desert island discs without the discs. This special episode is with music. It will include clips from Bagawire's album. So who are they? Steve Overland is a singer, songwriter, and guitarist who has headlined all over Europe and America. He is best known as FM's lead singer and for whom he's written 20 albums. Steve's been voted one of the top 10 rock singers of all time, and in Europe, he is known simply as The Voice. Tony Remy is one of the world's greatest and most versatile guitarists. He's been sought after by rock and pop music icons, including Annie Lennox, Simply Red, Gary Barlow, Jack Bruce, Craig David, Glenn Hughes, and from the jazz, funk, and soul world, he's played with Herbie Hancock, Wee Ellis, the Crusaders, Matt Bianco, and many more. Sonia Jones, their manager, is one of the top backing vocalists worldwide, singing, recording, and touring with bands including The Who, The Rolling Stones, Dave Gilmour, Donna Summer, Spandau Ballet, and Monty Python. Together, they make a pretty formidable group. Tony and Steve, welcome back. I had a brilliant time watching you both at Ronnie Scott's last night, dancing in the back row and screaming at you. But so much has happened to all of us since our first conversation. Your album, Back to Life, is about to be released. Steve, could you talk us through where the album stands right now and the plan?
Sure. We've just about finished the mixing stages, Katie. So we're doing the last song. We went through a thing where we mixed it once, like most bands do. I had it mastered at Abbey Road and then sat down together and went, nah. So, like the foolish men we are, we basically went back to the drawing board, took it back in with a team that we know, that we work with Stax, you know them too. Andy Wright, who produces Simply Red and Simple Minds, and Gavin Goldberg, the mix engineer that he uses. And it's been great.
Yeah,
really, the new mixes are fantastic. It's a different world.
Another level. Yeah.
Different world. Now we're signing deals at the moment and getting all that in place. And then hopefully we'll just do a lot more dates like the one last night. Just want to get out there and play it live. That's going to be the exciting part.
I've been lucky enough to listen to all these various different iterations as you've gone through. And each time I think when I listen to a song, I think, yeah, that's my favorite. And then I listen to the next one and then I think, maybe it's that one. And then there's one, I think, oh no, it's definitely that one. But if I had to pick one, I would choose Unforgettable Love, which just has to be the soundtrack to some epic love story. Gone with the Wind meets Dr. Zhivago meets Out of Africa, something like that.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. And it's going to happen. But sort of sweeping landscapes and star-crossed lovers.
Sure.
But that was the very first song that you wrote. So, Tony, how did it happen?
Basically, Sonia put us two together and we thought it was just going to be an acoustic project, a sit down little campfire thing. So I had this idea and I sent Steve voice memo, off the iPhone of this like little chord progression. And within a day, he said, "Oh, yeah, I've got something for that." We met up at Sonia's in the garden. I think that was the garden session.
That beautiful weather we had. Yeah.
Met up at Sonia's and played it. And he started singing this thing. I said, bang, done. The tune.
And that was it. It was that quick.
Yeah, tune was done.
Yeah, it was that quick. To be honest, Katie, I mean, you know us really well, but that's been the joy of me and Tone working together because we met in the Stax band. I came in quite late to that. But we got along real well from the start. So when Sonia thought, she knew that. She knew we'd become really good. So that's why she put us together. So all the way along, it's been like that. We've just sat down with plenty of glasses of red wine and in various places around the country and the world, you know, as you know. Just every song, I've never had this in all the records I've made, and Tone's been the same thing, and between us we've made as you know, a lot of records. It's just been so easy because every idea, if it's me coming up with what I call my bricklayer chords, which I'll come up with a chord sequence and then I'll just give them to Tony and say, just go away and make those special. That's how we work. It's just, and there's no
pressure. Fun. Sometimes, you know, I've been in many writing situations where people say, oh yeah, I want to write a hit or I want to do this. And it never happens that way. It has to be natural. It has to be just something that is just a part of you. It just flows. Oh, let's pick up a guitar and muck about with some chords. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, what if we did this? Bang.
Songwriting's all about being open.
Open,
and just because of the massive respect we have for each other anyway, it's great because everything Tony's got to say is important to me and vice versa. It's been classic examples where Tony's come up with something for a middle eight and I've had a bit of a face on and a bit like... but I always go, we'll see that one through then, Tony. Then I just...
I'm still waiting for the Spanish song.
Then I kind of live with it and it becomes this great piece of music in the middle of the song and it works, you know.
Yeah, when we were
that's
down
what
at
you got to be
place.
like. You have to be open and give things a chance. I've flown to New York to do writing sessions and got in a room with a guy and it's just been like, you sit there looking at each other for a little while, you know, and how are we going to do this then, you know? But with me and Tony, it's just, we're friends, we sit down, you've been with us when we've worked on songs.
It seems effortless.
Yeah. I'll sit in the window messing around and writing a few lyrics and Tone's there writing pieces of music and then it all just seems to gel together. It's that simple. It really is.
Let's listen to a little bit of Unforgettable Love. Steve, how did you come to music?
My brother was a really great guitar player. He was the original guitar player in FM. He wrote the first 3 records with me when we first got signed to CBS. And as a young lad, he was always having friends round. My family owned a store and the band used to rehearse in the room downstairs. I was into football and all different things like that at that time. And there'd always be like loads of young girls going in this room with my brother and stuff like that. And they all seemed to be having a really great time. And I thought, yeah, I wouldn't mind having a bit of that. One day he was out with his friends. So I stole one of his guitars and sat behind the sofa in the shop, got a chord book out and learned 3 songs. And it seemed to come, I just did it because my mates were away and I wanted to kill a bit of time. And that was it. I got hooked. I learned 3 songs. And it actually came quite easy to me. Instantly from that day on, it took my life over. And I was about 12.
It must be some kind of chemical reaction where you pick up an instrument and you get that feeling and you get hooked.
I mean, I know for a fact. I mean, how the hell Tone's become the best guitar player in the world because he started much later than me. What happened to me? But I think you do. And I think if you realise, do you know what? I can do this and I can recognise this and this is a song. All of a sudden, you want to learn more. You want to get better and better. And then obviously there's a lot of luck involved in the breaks you get along the way as you're learning. Mocking around, as Tone says, in the bedroom on a guitar. And one night, I was 13. But when I was 13, I was like 6 foot tall. So I was about as wide as a pencil, but 6 foot tall. So he came and he said, the guitar player's got the flu tonight. He said, do you want to come and do a gig? And I'm like, me? He went, yeah. He said, just because I need a rhythm guitar player. I ain't got an amp. He said, you can plug in the other channel on my amp. So I went and did this hotel that I wasn't supposed to be in because it was 18. So I snuck in with all the rest of them, and did this gig and that was it. And the problem was after that, I never wanted to be a singer. I didn't think of myself as being a singer, but I used to sing along when I was learning the songs. So I'd be doing All Right Now and things like that. And learning the Paul Rodgers licks to go over the top of the guitar player, not ever thinking about singing. So the next thing was I did the one gig, and he said, he normally sings Let It Be in a couple of songs. Would you sing a couple of songs? So I went, yeah, all right, then, and I sang these songs, and then they sacked the singer. I'm a 13-year-old boy and with a load of men in a band all of a sudden. So it was an instant,
that's so exciting.
Progression, and that was it. So from then on, that was my life. And I've been fortunate enough to do what I've done till now.
But you were very young when you actually got signed.
17, yeah.
And how did that happen?
I come from Norfolk in Kings Lynn on the east coast of the UK. And basically, word had got around about my brother and myself. And because we had a band called Wildlife, we had a load of original songs. So a guy that lived on the coast in a big house on the coast called Colin Thurlin came to a gig that I did locally. He'd heard about me and Chris, and he was involved in management. And I didn't realise, but at that time, I remember a famous actor, singer called Adam Faith.
Yes.
And he managed Leo Sayer at the time when Leo Sayer was massive. He was involved in Blondie, in a band called The Babies, which had John Waite as the singer. And Colin came to see me and my brother. I didn't know he was there. And then all of a sudden, we got a call. My dad got a call, actually, saying, where are the boys playing their next gig? And it was all in the local press. Adam Faith came to Kings Lynn in his Rolls-Royce Corniche with Nellam 1 number plate. Because Terry Nellam's his real name. So everybody was like, Adam Faith in Kings Lynn, because he was on TV and in film, in That Will Be the Day and films at the time. So he actually came to a place called the Regis Rooms to see me and my brother and said, I'd like you to move to London. I'd like you to sign to my management company and production company and just move you to London. And that was it. He got us a deal with Chrysalis Records and we moved to Edgware. At that time, we had a band. I mean, my first experience of recording under him, I went to, bear in mind, I'm a young Norfolk boy then with a real strong, all right boy accent and all that kind of thing. And he said, I want you to come to Ear Studios in London, which is one of the most famous studios, the original Ear Studios down in Oxford Street. So I'm like, really? And we arrived and he said, the thing is that this was the heartbreaking thing about it. I think we were talking about this earlier, Katie. I arrived with my little band and he said to me, can I have a word with you, Steve? This is Adam Faith. He called me into the other room. He said, we've got some other musicians that we want to use on the first single. Would you have a problem with that? 17 years old, talking to a famous actor who's just signed you. And I said, well, why? Like you would.
Yes.
And he said, well, I just think that for the first single, we need a certain kind of vibe on it, And we had we had Trevor Morace, who was a famous session drummer, Lawrence Dewey from Wings, who was playing with Paul McCartney, and Herbie Flowers, who's a massively famous. So he put this massive session band together to do the session, who played with Leo Sayer, basically. So what could I do? And so I had the job of telling
your mates,
Nigel and my mates that, but to me it was, being naive. They wanted me and my brother. The deal was only done with me and my brother. So sadly, I guess that's what happens in this business. And lots
well, you
of
get
businesses.
$1 million each anyway, didn't you?
Well, of my own money, obviously, yeah. And I bought a nice house. Well, actually, being me, I moved 2 of them into the house in London with me.
Did you?
Yeah, they came and lived with us. Me and my brother. We had a house. Well, we had a 4-bedroom house in Edgware. So Mark, the keyboard player, who unfortunately passed away recently, came and lived with us. He said, because I didn't want to sack them. So I said, I'll tell you what, I said, look, come and live with us and we'll do a few gigs in the Golden Lion and a few pubs in London. Because I wanted to keep playing. They basically signed you, Chrysalis, then put you on what they called a development period. So I wasn't doing any gigs. I let half the band move back in, but didn't tell Adam Faith that we'd done that, So that was it. That's how it all started. And that's many years later now.
The rest is history. You formed bands and reformed bands, and then FM came into being.
Yeah. I signed to Swan Song Records, Led Zeppelin's label, when it was managed by Led Zeppelin's management. And unfortunately, we did 1 album and toured that in America and over here, and it was great. It was with 2 members of Bad Company. So I did that and made a great record. Unfortunately, Swan Song then folded as a label because Peter stopped doing stuff. Robert Plant and Jimmy Page decided they were going to do separate things. So that all got disbanded, the label. So all of a sudden, I basically was left. Well, I got managed by Brian Lane, who managed Yes and people like that, as a writer. And then one day out of the blue, Pete, the drummer in FM, was originally in one lineup of the band that used to play the pubs in London with me when I was with Crusaders.
Okay.
But then we didn't make a record together until the first Wildlife album. But basically, he thought of me, and they got this melodic rock band that they'd formed, him and the bass player Merv from FM. And they tried loads of singers. And Pete just said, look, let me just give Steve a ring, see if he's up for doing it. And they told me the plan, and I just sort of said, because I loved doing the in-house writing stuff. I said, look, I'll tell you what. I said, I've got 3 or 4 tunes that I've written. Let's do 4 songs, a demo, and 1 showcase. Get as many people down as we can. If we get a deal, we get a deal. If we don't, we don't. We just go back to what we're doing, just, And so we hadn't got a name. It wasn't called FM. We did 1 showcase, and there was a guy there that managed me. One of Meatloaf's management team were there. This band that really wasn't a band, got offered a stadium tour with Meatloaf in Europe. So we had 7 dates offered to us to go to Europe in a band that hadn't really ever been formed. So we had to quickly knock together another 4 songs. And before we got a deal, we went out and did all these stadiums on the Bad Attitude tour. It was amazing. And we had to come up with a name. So we had all these really rubbish names. And then somebody said, well, it's quite melodic rock, sort of FM radio. So we went, FM, that'll do. So we just used that name. Came back and we got offered a deal with CBS, and that was how FM came together. We weren't even FM. But that's where the lock stuff comes in, Katie. Just somebody being there, and you get the opportunity to do something like that before you're even a band.
Yeah, but you have to put out that energy to get those opportunities.
Yeah, you do, Tony. Yeah, it's
put in the work.
Yeah, yeah. It's all about work, isn't it? And enjoying the work. That's the thing, and looking like you enjoy it.
So, Tony, how did you come to music?
In my primary school, there was an opportunity. The teacher said, who wants to play recorder? No one knew what a recorder was. And so she got out this little thing and played, and, everyone put their hands up. I definitely put my hand up. And then the next week, I remember in the classroom, this box came, and it had these oblong boxes, and I remember they were green. And all the kids in the classroom were so excited because they knew they were getting a recorder, even though they didn't know what to do with it, And I remember the teacher walked around and he put the box on each person's desk. And then he got this another box with these books, and they had notes in it. No one knew what this meant. And I can remember the smell when you opened the box, the smell of the brand new recorder, the book. And I remember being very, very excited. And I had a couple of recorder lessons. And, I remember coming home one day, and I didn't realize it at the time, but later on, my mum said I was getting on her nerves because I came home and I was playing do, do, do. But for me, it sounded like an orchestra.
Yeah.
You were on your way.
I now get to my secondary school. They had music lessons. And back in those days, it was free. I hadn't signed up yet, but my friend who I met in detention, and how we met is because he's I was always late. I'm always late. And then one day after school, he said, come down to the music room. And I went down to the music room, and he's playing the flute and he's playing piano. And I'm watching him. I'm going, wow, can you show me how to play? And he showed me, and the teacher came in and went, oh, would you like to learn to play? And so I started to have these lessons, and I had flute lessons, and I was really excelling in flute and piano. I did all the grades for years throughout my school life. Up to 17, I did all the grades. I got a distinction in grade 8 flute distinction. And I got up to grade 5 piano. And there was a teacher there called Roger Mallinson. He could play all the Elvis Presley guitar parts. And he showed me a couple of things, how to play an E, basic things, I went, wow. And because of my brain, I get hooked. like I'm hooked on wine, you know. I played in the London School Symphonic Band. They get together every Easter, Christmas, summer holiday to form a big orchestra. So we performed at the Albert Hall, Festival Hall, went to do things with the Welsh choir. And that's as a schoolboy. I was on TV when I was like 14. You know, my mum said, you have to get your studies together. She said, get your education, then you can do what you want. Then I went to the university. We had a band called Secretary Bailey. We were on the verge of getting signed. We were good, and I was writing then. I finished the university at 21, went straight into a job like 2 weeks later. And anyway, I had a friend from school. We're still friends now, Joe Bashaw, and he was playing with Bobby Womack at that time. And he said, Remy, you're not made for this. You should be doing this. And he's all over the place. He's New York, Australia, Canada, everywhere, Europe. I had only ever been to Jamaica, really, and Holland at that time,
yes.
you know. And he's all over the world. And I took the plunge and I left the work. And I started going to all these jam sessions in London, in the West End. There was loads at that time, you know, and I used to go, and there were some musicians there, older guys who were brilliant. Guitar, I could feel it was creeping more and more into my life, you know. I really started to study the guitar at home on my own. I bought books. I bought this book called Mickey Baker's Jazz Guitar. I learned every single thing in it. Started to make a name for myself in London. And then from there, my session career started to grow. I remember being in a band called Harrison with Frank Tonto, you saw on drums last night. And we went and did like 4 weeks work in Nomis Studios, rehearsing for an album. And at the end of the period, the manager, he gave us each an envelope. And I tell you, I remember me and Frank sitting in his, he had an XR3, right? We're sitting in the car and going, whoa, feeling the thickness of the
envelope. And laughing.
Yeah. It was an amazing thing. And so after that, my session career started to grow, and it grew so much that I was not blasé about it, because I felt like I was the young Turk on the scene. I was the guitar man in London for the funk and jazz, blues, because people started to call me and I was going, whoa. I remember getting this call one day. It was an American voice, and it was like, am I speaking to Tony Remy? This is Carl Griffin from GRP Records. I didn't believe it, because we used to play that trick on mates. Say, pretend we were a label, we're signing you for $1 million.
Yeah.
We used to do that trick. So I thought it was a trick. So at the time I had a manager, and he went, actually, Tony, it's true. GRP Records want to sign you. And GRP Records was the biggest jazz label in America. I've just lived from music and done what I wanted.
Next track, What You Give Is What You Get. And of course, I've stolen it for the Bandwidth theme tune. But it's a sassy rock tune, some Stevie Wonder vibes. I mean, it is the coolest song. And it was a knockout last night. Great lyrics, lyrics to live your life by. What was the inspiration behind that song?
Same deal, Tone. That was the second song.
That was the second song, yeah.
It was, honestly, Katie, that's how easy. I mean, so we did Unforgettable Love, and there were 2 voice memos from Tone. The second one was a riff that just went, Dick, Dick, and the groove of the song, Dick,
yes,
Dick, you know, and I just, when I was sitting at home one day, I put it on, and Tone will blow on something for a while. He'll just keep playing it because it gives me time to think of something. So I just came up with this Stevie Wonder vibe. Now, the chorus I hadn't got when I first went back to Tone. Then I came up with this key change chorus, remember? And
yeah.
I didn't know how Tony would because it was totally different chorus to what the verse vibe was. So I played it to him a bit like with my head down like this. What do you think of this? Tone? You know, waiting for
please don't laugh.
Yeah, waiting for the silence at the end of it, you know. And he just went, man, that's amazing. That's an amazing chorus. And once again, that was the second song we wrote. And it's that easy.
Never been a labour.
Never. And you've been with us when we're working. It's almost like
very relaxed.
2 blokes having a laugh writing these songs.
Written these really amazing songs. Well, let's listen to this one.
You gotta live life. Take your chances when they come. Take your time. Learn to walk before you run. Gotta do right. Even when you know that something's wrong, shine bright. is what you get.
We're all dealt different cards. Some are luckier than others, but a lot of life is sort of getting through and surviving and just getting on with it. And then there are a handful of just truly sublime moments. So mine was the day that I heard that I got into university, and I remember waiting for my father to come home and telling him, and he cried, having my children after having the agony of having them, but then that knowing that they were okay. And Tom Hiddleston, who I taught, he winked at me at the Donmar warehouse. That was a top moment, even though that does make me sound a bit shallow. So top moments that you pause and you think, wow, how did I get here? Could you describe a couple, Steve?
It's tough, really, Kash. I mean, obviously everybody has that one with the children, because I've got 3 sons. It's the same for me. They basically ground you and make you into the person you are. So basically, children make you realise that although music's been my life and my love, they're always going to be a greater love in everybody's life.
Yes.
They are, But for me, lots of things. I mean, as career-wise, probably I did the Royal Albert Hall for the first time. When I did that, and I headlined the Hammersmith Apollo, and I used to play in a little pub across the road called the Swan. And then whenever you go out, there's a little old London pub, and I was about, when I first came, 17 years old. And I used to stand on the stage, I used to watch all of the people coming out of, like, it could be like Earth, Wind and Fire. And I see it out the front of the Hammersmith Odeon, as it was called then.
Yeah.
And I used to think, because I've just done my little set in this little pub to 12 drunken Irishmen, or whatever, And I used to watch the people come out, and I used to think, God, it must be fantastic to be able to do that, be able to play a place like that. And obviously later in my life, I've probably done that about 12 times now. But whenever I have played there, I've never taken that for granted. So when I basically went out the front, when FM headlined the Hammersmith Odeon, and we were the name.
Moment.
We were the name on the front, and it's a memory I'll never forget. I took so many pictures of it, and so I have them at home, and it's just, that was a massive thing. I did a tour many years ago when there was this little band from America that came over to the UK that were not very well known, called Bon Jovi. And I went on tour with Bon Jovi. No idea who they were. They were a support band in America. I joined the tour. They were doing their first headline tour of the UK. As they started that tour, they were promoting an album called Slippery When Wet.
Yeah,
which is the album that took them from being a support band in America to having the biggest selling album, one of the biggest selling albums of all time, with Thriller, Michael Jackson. And I was on the road with them when that happened. I remember John and Richie, they had no idea. And all of a sudden, it was really weird. It was almost as if overnight, it must have happened to loads of bands like the Beatles and stuff like that in their time. They'd become like the biggest rock band in the world. And they were doing venues that were too small, that we were doing together. And I remember they were in a daze, really, on that tour. And I used to have to buy the drummer cups of coffee in the hotel because they got no money at the time. Hey, man, I could do the coffee. And he'd be sitting down at the bar. And all of a sudden they got like the number 1 record in America, number 1 record in the UK. They were being flown after shows to do a show called The Tube that was one of the programs on television at the time, and big music shows. And people were queuing around the corner from all the venues, and they had to stop, and they couldn't let them in. And it was just, it must have been what it was like if you were with the Beatles, because it was just all screaming girls and stuff. And it was almost as if they were a bit like,
where did this come from?
What's happened, They've been going for a long time. They'd had albums out before, but that album just launched them to being
superstars.
Living on a Prayers, and they're all on that record. So it was a great moment to be with them and be a part of that whole thing with them, even though it wasn't us, which would have been nice. I guess I've had many times through my life where things have happened, and I've just enjoyed all of it, really, and I still am.
I remember you talking about your FM revival.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. Well, FM had a 10-year break. We went off and did things. It was meant to be a 2-year break to stop touring because we toured far too much, and we got to the point where music had changed, and we used to get radio play, and we used to get this, and we just thought, you know what, maybe we'll stop and let the dust settle a bit and see how things go. So we went off and did separate things for this 2 years, and that turned into 3 years and 4 years. And So we just left it for 5 years, and it was quite evident that we probably were never going to get back together after that. I was doing other records. Everybody was doing their own thing. The band lived all over the world. And this promoters kept saying, look, will you just get back together and do this festival or this, you know. And I kept saying, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen now. We're just too complicated, you know. And there was one promoter called Kieran that kept badgering me. There used to be a big festival in Nottingham called the Firefest. And he kept coming back to me and said, just get the band. Said, even if one of the members doesn't want to do it, just use somebody else, but get the band back together and we'll use the FM banner and you can do the Saturday night headline in the festival. And I said, it's never going to. And it went on for 3 years and he kept putting the money up and up. And then one time he phoned me and I went, do you know what? I'll have a word with a couple of the other guys and see what they think. And I just said, look, why don't we just do this one gig, just for old time's sake, have some fun. If there's 200 people turn up on our day, it doesn't matter. I said, let's go into a rehearsal studio and see if when you play the songs, they sound like they're from another time. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't know, do you? Because we've had 10 years off. And we went into this studio and we played through about 5 of the tunes. There was a lot of energy there. It was fascinating. Everybody was clearly excited about being back in that situation. So I agreed with Kieran. I said, look, okay, we're going to fly in. Andy Barnett was the guitar player at that time, Tony, you know, and flew him over from Malta. And we announced the show and it sold out within about 3 hours.
Wow.
And it was the first time we'd ever had a sellout on the Saturday in all the years we've been doing it. It sold out. And people came from all over the world. There were people from South America. And we went on and there were banners being thrown over the thing saying the Greek FM fan club and all that. And I had no idea we had a Greek FM fan club. But we were just totally in a daze, taken aback. It was just phenomenal, the show. And the power went off at one point. And we just sat down on the front of the stage. Bear in mind, this is a big venue. Sat there and people were just shouting at us, talking to people, and the power came back on and we carried on the show. And it was all very much like we were in some kind of surreal other place. And we came off and instead of like what we all do, like if we have a great show like last, like we'll come off and we're like, oh, great, man, wasn't that great? We all just came up and sat in the dressing room and didn't say a word.
Just so shell-shocked.
Shocked, to be on your honest, because we'd have no idea that after 10 years, it would still be the same.
Following was so strong.
Same. So we did that one show with no plans. We just went away and didn't speak for about a month. And then record companies came and said, are you planning on making another record? ITB, a big agent who we were with at the time then, who with Bon Jovi and all the bands that we used to tour with, said, are you going to get back together? And it was a bit like we'd left it and had a meeting, said, look, you know. But it was that show was probably the most memorable show because I had no idea what I was doing. I was in a daze all the way through it. And it was on automatic pilot. It was almost like we hadn't been away for 10 years. And God knows, we might have been useless. I don't know. But, you know, obviously we weren't. So,
clearly not.
You know, we did a DVD of it because we didn't think we'd ever do another one. And it sold fantastically well. And so it was a no-brainer, really, Katie. So we decided we'd get back together and make a record and see. It's always been that way. We'll make an album and see if anybody buys it. So we got a deal. We did the deal. We did a deal for one record because we had no idea we were going to do another one. 12 years later, we've done 9 more albums and we're still touring the world, as you know. And yeah, you know, so that's what's great about this business. You know, people's love of music, if they love something, they tend to love it forever. It might be in a nostalgic way or it might be now, but they like what they like. And so long may it continue along with all the other great things.
Tony, a couple of top moments in your career.
Well, it's not going to be a couple. It's going to be 3.
Okay, 3. Brilliant.
I was becoming more established in the music business. And then I got a call from the Crusaders, which again I thought was a wind-up. I got a call from Wayne Henderson. He produced all the Street Life. Randy Crawford stuff. And he's been a producer from like the 60s. And we got Wilton Felder, like massive heroes of mine. And they said, we've heard about you, we want you to be in a band, we're doing a European tour. And so I was in that for 3 years. I'm in the shadow of Larry Carlton. And so I'm having to do some stuff like that. Maybe not as good, you know. But anyway, that was one of them. The second one was I got a call from the management of Annie Lennox. And she said, can you come up to the studio in Kensal Green? Yeah, sure.
And at that moment, you're thinking, wow, Annie Lennox? You're thinking, oh, well, you're feeling quite cool. Okay.
I was feeling cool, you know, because I'm not a kind of a jumpy guy, you know. I'm not, oh my God. And I'm going to put on a pinstripe suit and a bow tie. You know, I just went, I probably went like this, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so I went there and we're up in the room. We start talking and I've got my guitar case there, my acoustic. We're talking about kids. We're talking about dogs. We just really got on well. And I knew she liked me. You know, I liked the vibe, her vibe too. So I didn't even have to play a note for the audition.
Yeah.
And so then we just did like 6 weeks rehearsal, learning all the stuff. And then, you know, I was in the band for quite a number of years, you know, doing various things. And from that, it's 4 I'm going to tell you, actually.
Okay.
Right.
It's like a Monty Python sketch. So
another massive moment, right, was after some years of being in the band, then Live 8 came along. And to start Sweet Dreams, for me, that's an iconic bit of guitar. And to go out and see, like, I don't know how many people there, it's like 1 million people in Hyde Park. And you go, bam, on your guitar, and you hear it scream through those speakers at the front.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
There can't be anything like it.
There's not a moment like that. That's the biggest moment. I mean, you know, I've played loads of places, Hollywood Bowl, Madison Square Gardens, Albert Hall, everywhere with all the different genres of music that I've done. But that, especially when Brad Pitt was standing beside me and I peeked through the curtain and I went, oh, man. And he because I was scared of the people.
Yeah,
the amount of people.
Shocked by how many.
And he went, you shouldn't have done that. Yeah, he's a nice guy, actually. And so it went out and just hearing that guitar, starting that tune. Wow. Yeah, incredible feeling.
Yeah.
The next feeling was to hear that Herbie Hancock has asked for me to come and play on the thing. The guy who I grew up listening to. And the funny thing is, everyone I've played with, you know, like Lonnie Liston Smith, Herbie, Crusaders, Jack Bruce, all these millions of people who I grew up listening to from school days, and I get a phone call from them.
That's amazing, What a great thing.
And you're playing with them.
Yeah.
I didn't think these people that I idolized would find my number from somewhere and call me. That's the weird thing.
It's a great business to be in. You know, there's always surprises around the corner.
Yeah, I get surprised every week, pretty much.
Always.
Well, coming back to the album, what would you do? Well, I love that one as well. And it's Minnie Riperton meets Earth, Wind and Fire. And it's just...
What would you do? What's that one again?
I told you. Tony will be able to tell you the guitar parts. You know, that's the dance
It's
track.
Minnie Riperton. La, 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 la.
Oh, yeah.
How did that song come about?
That's a funny story. I mean, I think that was written at about 2 a.m, wasn't it, Tony?
Yeah,
in the garden, after a night of sitting out there, eating, drinking, round the table.
Steve Strength, gin and tonics.
And the thing was, it was actually Sonia, who is our manager and our mentor and sings on the album, the person that put all this together. She said, oh, Lily, this is her granddaughter's favourite song. She gets Lily, she was 2 at the time, to sing la, 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 la. And she just started singing that. She said, it'd be great to have a song around that. We were messing around. So Tone gets the acoustic out and starts playing all these fantastic Nile Rodgers things. She starts singing la, 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 la. And then that song came out of that, messing around the table. Then I just started writing things. I'll serve you. And that was it. We had a song, you know?
Well, and Tom Enzi has now done a dance remix on that song, hasn't he? So and that's going to come out this summer. Hopefully it will come out this summer.
In Ibiza, we want it.
And be playing all the clubs in Europe. So let's hear it.
You're in all the places to be seen. You're the face in everybody's dream, lady. let me know. What would you do? What would you do for love? Because to you, too much is not enough.
Okay, we've talked about high moments. Perhaps we can talk about a low moment for each of you. Both of you have had near-death experiences. Steve, yours was on the road.
Yeah.
Could you tell us what happened?
We'd done a successful European tour, 6 weeks in Europe, and we were kind of on a high. We were on our way back to the UK, and we were all obviously through a tour. You get your rider, which is the alcohol and all the stuff. And so the last night, you got the long journey across Europe on the tour, the sleeper bus, and we were just in the bus drinking stuff. And I decided I'd had enough. So I said, right, boys, I'm going to bed now, because it was probably God knows what the time. So I went upstairs to go to my bunk, went to bed, and all of a sudden, within seconds of being in bed, suddenly started bouncing up and down the bunk like this. And it was a really weird experience. I kind of thought, what's going on? And I soon realised that the bus had started to go over. These are massive, these tour buses, aren't they, Tony? They're like double-deckers, and they're like houses. So you have 2 kitchens, you've got 12 people
lounges,
on them, lounges.
beds,
so you got
everything.
TVs and microwave, everything. So all of a sudden, everything started crashing around the bus. Yeah, so basically, I'm lying there and I'm just thinking, we're going to crash. The bus is turning over. Scary moment. And the amazing thing was, it was like a slow motion experience. I actually lie there bouncing around in this thing that was a huge thing, thinking I need to grab hold of something that is fixed to the bus. You know, the luggage racks on coaches that's fixed to the top?
Yes.
How I had the time and didn't panic to think of this, I don't know. And I grabbed it. And as I grabbed it, the bus went over into a ditch and a dike on the side of the road. And all of the bunks on my side, as it went, fell away from the wall and collapsed onto the top of the other ones on the side of the wall. So I'm just hanging there. How the bunks missed my body, I have no idea, Katie, because they slid away from under me and I'm hanging there and my boxer shorts. And then all of a sudden, obviously, with these kind of things, it's like, the horn went off and we were upside down in a ditch, I'm just hanging there and I'm thinking, what do I do? And I heard, I'm not shouting to see, because it's darkness all of a sudden. So I'm shouting to say, is everybody okay? Like shouting to see everybody else is okay. No idea anybody else has ended up in this, whatever's happened, this chaos. So I just hung there and all of a sudden I heard our drum tech's voice going, it's filling up with water. It's filling up with water, because we're in a dike. So obviously the water's coming in through the broken windows. And I just suddenly saw, we were so lucky. I mean, because I suddenly saw people climbing out to get to the skylights that were actually still we could get out of. And it was absolutely peeing down with rain on this side of this place where we crashed.
And dark.
Well, pitch black, yeah, with not knowing where anybody was. So we all managed to, so here we are on the side of this place in Belgium, on there in my boxer shorts and the pouring rain on the side of the road. All of the band climbed out. The driver was quite badly injured, unfortunately. But the band, I mean, we were taken, it was on the news. We were taken to hospital and spent the night in hospital. But I just had glass stuff and nothing serious. So thank God, nobody was really badly injured. We've never, ever used a tour bus ever since then. It's the typical thing. I mean, the drivers drive a lot. It's a 6-week tour of Europe and he just fell asleep at the wheel. And in a way, you always have somebody sitting with a driver, don't you?
Yeah.
So,
I always used to sit with the driver.
I used to go up and sit with them.
Like
So
6
you can
o'clock
talk
in
to
the
them.
morning.
Like one of you will go up and sit with them and just talk to them and stuff like that. But for some reason that night, it was the last night. So all of the band and all of the crew just wanted to celebrate the end of a long tour. Nobody sat with him. So one of those things, but we're all here.
And Tony, you were shot. And how did that happen? And how did you overcome the accompanying trauma?
I'm in Kingston, a place called Waterhouse. It's an area, it's not for you. It's not for me, really, but my family Some of my family live there. I've been there, going there since I was a kid. If you stay within your boundary, because it's all kind of almost like postcode related, everything's going to be fine. And so, we were intending to go to some street party. But before that, it was just before midnight, we said, let's get some food. So they have these little kind of stalls, and we decided to have some cowfoot soup and some rice, right? So we got that, and we're eating it on the street. We start walking, and I'm walking past this church, and then all of a sudden, I see sparks flying off the wall. I'm hearing... It doesn't sound like the movies, by the way. I'm just hearing... And I'm thinking it was like little firework things, because I'm seeing these sparks coming. And then all of a sudden, my cousin, his name is Witchy, by the way, he says, get down on the floor. So we get down on the floor. And now we start hearing, it sounds like proper gunshots now. Boom, boom, boom. And he says, now we have to run, because I didn't see it, but he probably imagined that the guys who were shooting at us were going to come across the road, because we're on one street, a narrow street, and they're shooting at us from across the road.
And is there any particular reason why they're doing this, Tony?
Not that I know of. I think it was just like a gang from another postcode sanctioned to kill some people in this area. Because I know that none of my cousins are involved in drugs or scamming or anything like that. And I'm definitely not involved in anything like this. So it was just like some people, bad boys.
Caught up in it.
Caught up in something. Yeah. Or maybe they thought we were someone else. And they wanted, there was no reason for it.
Yeah.
Not that I know of. And anyway, my cousin said, we have to run. And I started to run, and I saw one of my cousins get blazed like 3 times. Like he was spinning in the road, but still managed to keep running. And then I saw my other cousin. I just saw his head just go like this. Like I thought he was going to fall off his head.
Yeah.
And I'm not even dramatizing this thing. When you see it, because as we said about slow motion a minute ago, it feels like slow motion. And I didn't even feel when I got hit, but we ran, and it felt like we were running for an hour. It was probably, 20 seconds or something. And I ran into this square, like a cul-de-sac thing. And I remember it had corrugated iron around it. And I was looking for somewhere where I can crawl under to get
hide
away from it. Because now the big guns came up. The first ones were pistols, you could tell. But now they started to sound like cannons. They sounded like semi-automatic rifles, M16s or SLRs or whatever, That's their weapon of choice over there. I remember standing there, and my cousin had a key to go into this little lockup. And I remember seeing him with his hand, because he had been shot 3 times. His hand was shaking. It felt like 3 hours for him to open the padlock of the thing, and he's going like this. And I'm panicking, but frozen at the same time. Eventually going to this room, and I'm sitting down on this single bed, and I'm hearing these guns blazing outside. And then eventually says, you have to come out of here, because in here, we're definitely cornered. Come out of here. And I remember standing in the square. Now I'm frozen like a rock, and I couldn't move. My feet were cemented to the floor. All I was thinking, okay, you're dead. I could see the bullets taking off the corner of the concrete. It's taking off bits of this concrete, bang, bang. And it's loud. It's like a cannon. And I remember rooted to the spot like that. And I could just feel this, I thought I was weeing myself, right? Because I could feel all this fluid coming down my leg here and into my shoes. My trainers were squelching. I didn't know what to think, to be honest. And I remember this girl came up from behind me. And by now, I could hear sirens. And this girl came up, and she felt me here. And she said, you've been shot. And she carried me to the police car, and they put me in the police car. The police car drive was more scary than the shooting. In these like windy little roads in Kingston, like 1,000,000 miles an hour, I got there, and finally I worked out that hot fluid was blood. My whole shoe was filled with blood all down here. It just missed the main artery there. The worst thing was, because I needed a knee operation at the same time, and I damaged that as well. So when the nurses were pulling me apart in the hospital, cutting off my jeans and blah, 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 they didn't realize I've got a knee issue, and that's killing me as well. So I'm screaming with that. I'm screaming with the other pain now as well. Because once the adrenaline subsides, the pain hits you, and everything and all the psychological stuff hits you as well.
Once you knew you were physically going to be okay,
the emotional bit kicks in, and then you realize that you're never going to be okay, because no one needs that kind of trauma. And then you understand what PTSD is. And that's why, our friend, he helped me a lot on that and paid for some therapy. And the key thing that was said at that time was, Tony, you're never going to forget this, but you have to put it in the bottom drawer and be able to open that drawer, talk about it, and then put the notes back in the drawer and close it at will. Don't think that you're ever going to forget it, because you're not. At least 8 times per week, I think about that. I think about that all the time. It's like something in one part of my brain that's constantly niggling away at me. Not in a negative way, but sometimes I wonder, how comes I can't forget this stuff? I'll be talking about music and I have a rest to go and make a cup of tea, and then I remember this.
Well, it's something that doesn't happen to any of us. It's such an surreal experience coming that close to being killed.
Yeah. When I'm playing music, I don't think about that. Like, we're talking about it now. This is the most I've spoken about it for a few months, to be honest. When I'm at home, yeah, I always think about it, especially when I'm around my kids. When I was on a video call with my son in Copenhagen, say, oh man, how good is it to be speaking with him and he's doing so well and blah, blah, blah. Imagine if I wasn't here to witness his flowering and to see my daughter say, I think about these things, and even though they're positive,
but it takes
my
you back
brain
there.
Goes into a negative thing of like, oh, what if?
Yeah, and I'm sure that you're not ever going to be able to let that go.
So, but I'm glad to be around, and I've survived that. I have a story for my book at some point.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to the intro of your song, Serious. Not that it's about this, but I love the intro to this song, the way that it builds and builds, and then it just takes off. So let's listen.
I know that sometimes carry the weight of the world, leave those sorrows behind. Tell me why you so serious?
The music industry has changed so much, just from a listener's perspective. I know I grew up going into HMV or Virgin, and I would save up my pocket money. One of the most joyful things of my childhood would be to go into one of those shops and rifle through the records and then tapes and then CDs and then the anticipation on the car journey home that I was going to listen to this new album. But of course, now it's on streaming platforms and I don't listen to albums anymore. I kind of, you sort of pick and choose songs, which is a totally different thing. But at your end, not necessarily the writing of the songs, because that doesn't ever change, but moving it through to production and getting it out there must have changed totally. How has it changed?
Well, it's totally different, Katie, isn't it? And the thing is, you have to kind of try and grow with it. don't you, Tony?
Yeah.
You know, because you can't change it. I mean, I'm the same as you. In my day, I used to look forward to going. I'd buy records just because I liked the sleeve.
Yeah.
To own it. To own it.
Reading the names on who's played, played guitar on that, and blah, blah, blah.
Whereas
Used to
now,
love that.
a lot of people that buy an album or buy a song, they don't ever see the artwork. They don't see who's on the record. They're not particularly, it's just a song, that they like. And so I guess in that way, it's become a little more disposable. But the way we approach music, as you say, is still exactly the same, isn't it? It's the same process. It's the same thing. I mean, I still, when we do the sleeve for the Bagawire record, I want it to have that retro vibe to it. And we want to try and make this record as much what we did when we grew up with music as we can. Hopefully have all of those elements back in what makes people love music and the presentation of music, not just a song. So the vinyl, do everything as it used to be. And if we can do that, and because vinyl is now very big again, it is, and people are realizing that music's a possession. It's not just a disposable product like a tin of beans or whatever you want to compare it to. It's actually something to own, because we put the same amount of work into making a record and the same amount of work into what we put it into and what we, having pictures of how we made the record and the sleeve will be great, of us in the studio and let people into what it took to produce and make this piece of art or music, And that's still really important to me. And although we have to promote it, in mine in Tone's day, we couldn't just let everybody know we got a record coming out by pushing the button. This record will be released on the D, and the whole world get to know that. You had to go out and play it to let people know that your record out,
Yeah, and that's what hopefully we can do.
Yeah,
Play that record, do some key gigs where there's invited people that will have or who have the power to spread the word and just do it. And, we've been speaking about doing it in different formats. It doesn't have to be the big band all the time. If it's the acoustic thing, fine. If it's the acoustic with a keyboard, bang. Different formats. Me and Steve with a string quartet.
It's all about the playing, Katie, for us. That's what we've been doing all our lives, singing and playing music. So to us, it's important that to keep it, I guess that's a stupid saying, but to keep it real so people can see that we don't really need to have a show. Me and Tony can sit on a couple of stools and play and sing the songs, And we've done that already. Unforgettable Love is a classic song that's never been released. We've played it in so many people's houses, at so many places where we've just got up and played it that, it almost feels like a classic song that's never been released. Lots of people have heard that song, Lava, and we just want to try and bring back a bit of that kind of thing to this record because it's of that vibe. This record, it's got that retro-y feel to it,
And having been in the music industry for as long as you guys have and seen the successes and seen the near misses and all of that, aside from talent, what do you think is the one thing it takes to be a successful musician?
Well, let Tony. He'll tell you in one sentence.
It's a work ethic. You cannot play a great guitar lick and a couple of girls are screaming at you and think you've made it. Because you haven't made it. That's just a microsecond of adulation. Use that and build upon that. Keep listening, keep learning, hang around with good people. This is the key. For me, I've only learned by hanging around with good musicians. I didn't learn from school, from a music college. I constantly learn from you. I've never seen anyone who can sing for 10 hours straight and not complain about honey and milk.
It's all about hard work and the openness always has to be there. You always have to realise you'll never know everything, ever. You're going to go and work with somebody new and you're going to go, oh, right. Now, the main thing with the songs I write with Tony is I can't play them. I wish he'd stop putting all the... So I've got a lot to learn on all these special chords. That I thought I could play guitar till I worked with him. Now I've got to relearn. So, but you can always learn. Songwriting from every single thing. Everybody you work with, play with, write with, will have something in the way they do it. It's different to the way you do it. So you learn from all of that in every aspect of that process of making a record, producing it, everything. Greatness makes you want to be greater.
The Soul Satellite, that is such a joyful, feel-good song, which we're going to listen to. How did that one come into being?
Basically, I wrote the song at home, or the basis of it, brought it down and did what I normally do at the time. So I gave him the song. I'd got half the lyric. So what do you think to this? Started strong. I said, yeah, that's cool, that, Steve, So I went away to finish the lyric, came back, and he'd completely rewritten all the chords. So then I couldn't play it anymore. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, that's great, but I'll just change it all and rewrite all the chords. And but it was kind of like a happy, feel-good tune. And it was one of those songs that I didn't know whether it would be right for us. It's become the favourite of so many people really love it.
I've listened to it a million times, and when I hear it, I go, man, that's good.
The summer song.
It's a really joyful summer song.
Out of all the tunes on the album, that one, that's definitely going on the radio.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is. Well, let's listen to a clip of it. You could just have an evening with a musician, dead or alive, who would it be?
I would love to spend an hour with Stevie Wonder. I would love to meet the man, And somebody I've always wanted to meet that I think would be the best night out you could ever have. Just going to a few pubs and clubs would be Rod Stewart. I'd love to meet Rod Stewart because I think he must have so many brilliant stories, rock and roll stories to tell.
I'll tell you what, Steve, I don't want to do a click moment, but both of those people I've spent a lot of time with.
Oh, God. Gets on your nerves, doesn't it?
Have you really?
Yeah. When I had my record deal and they were flying me to America all the time, and I did BET, it's a television station in Washington. I was on the bill, and Stevie Wonder was the guest of honor, and he had an after show party. So he's got this suite on the top floor with 2 white grand pianos in there.
Wow.
No.
And so everyone's in there caning drinks. Boom, boom, boom. He's playing a bit of piano. It was an amazing feeling to be in the same room.
Yeah, what an honour. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Rod Stewart, I did some of that jazz stuff. Remember when he had the jazz album?
Yeah. Did you do that?
Yeah.
I never knew
I did
that.
some TV work
that
with
quiet.
that.
Did he have lots of stories to tell? Or was he too busy on the album?
I didn't ask him about his stories, but I'm sure he's got stories.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got stories not for this podcast.
I can imagine. And for you, Tony, if you could have
stories?
one, no, we're still after. But one musician of them all, who would you choose an evening with?
Stevie, of course, because he's shaped the way we write, the way we think about music, the stuff we like, even though we've blended in rock people and jazz people. I would have loved to be in a room with Jeff Beck, just vibing, because I think I could vibe with him.
No, you have that same fire.
He didn't want to be the pop star guitar player. He just wanted to be the iconic guitar player, the guy who's you're going to remember forever. I want to be that guy as well.
Oh, you're doing all the right things. Bagawire. Why have you called yourselves Bagawire?
Back in the day when I had hair, you couldn't really get the comb through it. So I had to go from the normal comb, you know, the long comb you get, and I had to revert to the Afro pick just to try and untangle it. So my mum used to call it's like a bag of wire. But, you know, with the Jamaican accent and all that kind of stuff, it's Bagawire, you know?
Yeah.
And that just come back to you when you were thinking of a name for
Well, Tone
the
said,
album.
we had the conversation one night, he said that, and we just said, we were trying to think of a name for the band, and it's so original.
It is. It's a lovely name. It's a really
And
lovely
when
name.
you tell people it, people are like, Bagawire. And it's just, it will stick in your mind.
It makes you perk up, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, I just think it's a great, memorable name. It's like Jamiroquai. It's like all those names. It's like you become the name or the name becomes you, you know. So I think it's great. I love it. Everybody seems to love it.
And Back to Life, the name of the album, did that come down from lockdown or?
Yeah, because, you know, that's where the album was written. So, yeah, and then all of a sudden we all came back to life. Bagawire are now starting their life, so we're very excited about it.
That is really, really exciting. Well, we're going to finish with a clip from the single Back to Life. And thank you so much for today for a start. But actually, no, I have had so much fun watching you play, listening to your music, being in your orbit.
Yeah, you were there from the inception, you know, so
You
it's
were?
like...
Yeah.
Well, it's really, really exciting time. And just please keep those songs coming.
We will.
I sailed the ship of fools, but now those days are gone. These gray skies have turned to blue since the day you came along. Came and took the weight off your shoulders. You made all the wrongs into rights. Now you hear those dark days are over. You came and brought me back to life, back to life. Now you brought me back to life, back to life.
You've been listening to Bandwidth Conversations. Thanks to Anna B., Head of Marketing, to Matthew Passy and all at the podcast consultant, to Bagawire for the music, to the Money Maze podcast. Thank you for listening. Any feedback, please email me, katie@bandwidthconversations.com. Please sign up on our website, www.bandwidthconversations.com, so we can notify you about new podcast releases. We hope to see you again soon.